A short sketch of the life and teachings of Lord Caitanya, the preacher of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the great apostle of love of God and the father of the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord, advented himself at Sridham Mayapur, a quarter in the city of Navadvip in Bengal, on the Phalguni Purnima evening in the year 1407 Shakabda, corresponding to February 1486 by the Christian calendar. His father, Sri Jagannath Misra, a learned Brahmin from the district of Sylhet, came to Navadvip as a student because at that time Navadvip was considered to be the center of education and culture. He domiciled on the banks of the Ganges after marrying Srimati Sachi Devi, a daughter of Srila Nilambar Chakravarti, the great learned scholar of Navadvip. Jagannath Misra had a number of daughters by his wife, Srimati Sachi Devi, and most of them expired at an early age. Two surviving sons, Sri Vishvarup and Vishwambar, became at last the object of their paternal affection. The 10th and youngest son, who was named Vishwambar, later became known as Nimai Pandit, and then, after accepting the renounced order of life, Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu exhibited his transcendental activities for 48 years and then disappeared in the year 1455, Shakabda, at Puri. For his first 24 years, he remained at Navadvip as a student and householder. His first wife was Srimati Lakshmi Priya, who died at an early age when the Lord was away from home. When he returned home from East Bengal, he was requested by his mother to accept a second wife, and he agreed. His second wife was Srimati Vishnupriya Devi, who bore the separation of the Lord throughout her life because the Lord took the order of sannyas at the age of 24, when Srimati Vishnupriya was barely 16 years old. After taking sannyas, the Lord made his headquarters at Jagannath Puri, due to the request of his mother, Srimati Sachi Devi. The Lord remained for 24 years at Puri. For 6 years of this time, he traveled continuously all over India, and especially throughout southern India, preaching the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Lord Caitanya not only preached the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, but propagated the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita as well, in the most practical way. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna is depicted as the absolute personality of Godhead. And his last teachings in that great book of transcendental knowledge instruct that one should give up all the modes of religious activities and accept him, Lord Sri Krishna, as the only worshipable Lord. The Lord then assured that all his devotees would be protected from all sorts of sinful acts, and that for them there would be no cause of anxiety. Unfortunately, despite Lord Sri Krishna's direct order and the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, less intelligent people misunderstand him to be nothing but a great historical personality. And thus, they cannot accept him as the original personality of Godhead. Such men with a poor fund of knowledge are misled by many non-devotees. Thus, the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita were misinterpreted, even by great scholars. After the disappearance of Lord Sri Krishna, there were hundreds of commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita by many erudite scholars, and almost every one of them was motivated by self-interest. Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu is the self-same Lord Sri Krishna. This time, however, he appeared as a great devotee of the Lord in order to preach to the people in general, as well as to religionists and philosophers, about the transcendental position of Sri Krishna, the primeval Lord, and the cause of all causes. The essence of his preaching is that Lord Sri Krishna, who appeared at Vrajabhumi, Vrindavan, as the son of the king of Vraja, Nanda Maharaj, is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is therefore worshipable by all. Vrindavan Dham is non-different from the Lord because the name, fame, form, and place where the Lord manifests himself are all identical with the Lord as absolute knowledge. Therefore, Vrindavan Dham is as worshipable as the Lord. The highest form of transcendental worship of the Lord was exhibited by the damsels of Vrajabhumi in the form of pure affection for the Lord. And Lord Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu recommends this process as the most excellent mode of worship. He accepts the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Purana as the spotless literature for understanding the Lord, and he preached that the ultimate goal of life for all living beings is to attain the stage of prema, or love for God. Many devotees of Lord Caitanya, like Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, Sri Lochana Das Thakur, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Sri Kavikarna Purna, Sri Prabodhananda Saraswati, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatt Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, Sri Gopal Bhatt Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, and in this latter age, within 200 years, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti, Sri Baladev Vidyabhusan, Sri Shyamananda Goswami, Sri Narottam Das Thakur, Sri Bhaktivedanta Thakur, and at last, Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our spiritual master. And many other great and renowned scholars and devotees of the Lord have prepared voluminous books and literatures on the life and precepts of the Lord. Such literatures are all based on the Shastras, like the Vedas, Puranas, Upanishads, Ramayana, Mahabharata, and other histories and authentic literatures approved by the recognized acharyas. They are unique in composition and unrivaled in presentation, and they are full of transcendental knowledge. Unfortunately, the people of the world are still ignorant of them, but when these literatures, which are mostly in Sanskrit and Bengali, come to light the world, and when they are presented before thinking people, then India's glory and the message of love will overflood this morbid world, which is vainly searching after peace and prosperity by various illusory methods, not approved by the acharyas in the chain of disciplic succession. The readers of this small description of the life and precepts of Lord Caitanya will profit much to go through the books of Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, and Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. The early life of the Lord is most fascinatingly expressed by the author of Chaitanya Bhagavat, and as far as the teachings are concerned, they are more vividly explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Now they are available to the English-speaking public in our teachings of Lord Caitanya. The Lord's early life was recorded by one of his chief devotees and contemporaries, namely Srila Murari Gupta, a medical practitioner of that time. And the latter part of the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was recorded by his private secretary, Sri Damodar Goswami, or Srila Sarup Damodar, who was practically a constant companion of the Lord at Puri. These two devotees recorded practically all the incidences of the Lord's activities, and later on all the books dealing with the Lord, which are above mentioned, were composed on the basis of karchas by Srila Damodar Goswami and Murari Gupta. So the Lord advented himself on the Palguni Purnima evening of 1407 Shakabda. And it was by the will of the Lord that there was a lunar eclipse on that evening. During the hours of the eclipse, it was the custom of the Hindu public to take bath in the Ganges or any other sacred river and chant the Vedic mantras for purification. When Lord Caitanya was born during the lunar eclipse, all India was roaring with the holy sound of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. These 16 names of the Lord are mentioned in many Puranas and Upanishads, and they are described as the Taraka Brahma Nam of the sage. It is recommended in the Shastras that offenseless chanting of these holy names of the Lord can deliver a fallen soul from material bondage. There are innumerable names of the Lord, both in India and outside, and all of them are equally good because all of them indicate the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because these 16 are especially recommended for this age, people should take advantage of them and follow the path of the great acharyas who attain success by practicing the rules of the Shastras, revealed scriptures. The simultaneous occurrence of the Lord's appearance and the lunar eclipse indicated the distinctive mission of the Lord. This mission was to preach the importance of chanting the holy names of the Lord in this age of Kali, quarrel. In this present age, quarrels take place even over trifles, and therefore the Shastras have recommended, for this age, a common platform for realization, namely, chanting the holy names of the Lord. People can hold meetings to glorify the Lord in their respective languages and with melodious songs, and if such performances are executed in an offenseless manner, it is certain that the participants will gradually attain spiritual perfection without having to undergo more rigorous methods. At such meetings, everyone, the learned and the foolish, the rich and the poor, the Hindus and the Muslims, the Englishmen and the Indians, and the Chandlas and the Brahmins, can all hear the transcendental sounds and thus cleanse the dust of material association from the mirror of the heart. To confirm the Lord's mission, all the people of the world will accept the holy name of the Lord as the common platform for the universal religion of mankind. In other words, the advent of the holy name took place along with the advent of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. When the Lord was on the lap of his mother, he would at once stop crying as soon as the ladies surrounding him chanted the holy names and clapped their hands. This peculiar incident was observed by the neighbors with awe and veneration. Sometimes the young girls took pleasure in making the Lord cry and then stopping him by chanting the holy name. So from his very childhood, the Lord began to preach the importance of the holy name. In his early age, Lord Sri Caitanya was known as Nimai. This name was given by his beloved mother because the Lord took his birth beneath a neem tree in the courtyard of his paternal house. When the Lord was offered solid food at the age of 6 months, in the Annaprasana ceremony, the Lord indicated his future activities. At this time, it was customary to offer the child both coins and books in order to get some indication of the future tendencies of the child. The Lord was offered on one side coins, and on the other the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. The Lord accepted the Bhagavatam instead of the coins. When he was a mere baby, crawling in the courtyard, one day a snake appeared before him, and the Lord began to play with it. All the members of the house were struck with fear and awe, but after a little while the snake went away, and the baby was taken away by his mother. Once he was stolen by a thief who intended to steal his ornaments. But the Lord took a pleasure trip on the shoulder of the bewildered thief who was searching for a solitary place in order to rob the baby. It so happened that the thief, wandering hither and thither, finally arrived just before the house of Jagannath Misra, and being afraid of being caught, dropped the baby at once. Of course, the anxious parents and relatives were glad to see the lost child. Once a pilgrim Brahmin was received at the house of Jagannath Misra, and when he was offering food to the Godhead, the Lord appeared before him and partook of the prepared food. The eatables had to be rejected because the child touched them, and so the Brahmin had to make another preparation. The next time, the same thing happened, and when this happened repeatedly for the 3rd time, the baby was finally put to bed. At about 12 at night, when all the members of the house were fast asleep within their closed rooms, the pilgrim Brahmin offered his specially prepared foods to the deity. And in the same way, the baby, Lord, appeared before the pilgrim and spoiled his offerings. The Brahmin then began to cry, but since everyone was fast asleep, no one could hear him. At that time, the baby Lord appeared before the fortunate Brahmin and disclosed his identity as Krishna himself. The Brahmin was forbidden to disclose this incident, and the baby returned to the lap of his mother. There are many similar incidences in his childhood. As a naughty boy, he sometimes used to tease the Orthodox Brahmins who used to bathe in the Ganges. When the Brahmins complained to his father that he was splashing them with water instead of attending school, the Lord suddenly appeared before his father, as though just coming from school with all his school clothes and books. At the bathing ghat, he also used to play jokes on the neighboring girls, who engaged in worshipping Shiva in hopes of getting good husbands. This is a common practice amongst unmarried girls in Hindu families. While they were engaged in such worship, the Lord naughtily appeared before them and said, quote, "My dear sisters, please give me all the offerings you have just brought for Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is my devotee, and Parvati is my maidservant. If you worship me, then Lord Shiva and all the other demigods will be more satisfied." End quote. Some of them refused to obey the naughty Lord, and he would curse them, that due to their refusal they would be married to old men who had 7 children by their previous wives. Out of fear, and sometimes out of love, the girls would also offer him various goods, and then the Lord would bless them and assure them that they would have very good husbands and that they would be mothers of dozens of children. The blessings would enliven the girls, but they used often to complain of these incidents to their mothers. In this way, the Lord passed his early childhood, and when he was just 16 years old, he started his own Chatuspati, village school conducted by a learned Brahmin. In this school, he would simply explain Krishna, even in readings of grammar. Srila Jiva Goswami, in order to please the Lord, later composed a grammar in Sanskrit in which all the rules of grammar were explained with examples that used the holy names of the Lord. This grammar is still current. It is known as Harinamamrita Vyakarana and is prescribed in the syllabus of schools in Bengal. During this time, a great Kashmir scholar named Keshava Kashmiri came to Navadvip to hold discussions on the Shastras. The Kashmir Pandit was a champion scholar, and he had traveled to all places of learning in India. Finally, he came to Navadvip to contest the learned Pandits there. The Pandits of Navadvip decided to match Nimai Pandit, Lord Caitanya, with the Kashmir Pandit, thinking that if Nimai Pandit were defeated, they would have another chance to debate with the scholar, for Nimai Pandit was only a boy. And if the Kashmir Pandit were defeated, then they would be even more glorified, because people would proclaim that a mere boy of Navadvip defeated a champion scholar who was famous throughout India. It so happened that Nimai Pandit met Keshava Kashmiri while strolling on the banks of the Ganges. The Lord requested him to compose a Sanskrit verse in praise of the Ganges, and the Pandit, within a short time, composed 100 slokas, reciting the verses like a storm and showing the strength of his vast learning. Nimai Pandit at once memorized all the slokas without an error. He quoted the 64th sloka and pointed out certain rhetorical and literary irregularities. He particularly questioned the Pandit's use of the words Bhavani Bhartu. He pointed out that the use of these two words was redundant. Bhavani means the wife of Shiva, and who else can be her Bharta or husband? He also pointed out several other discrepancies, and the Kashmir Pandit was struck with wonder. He was astonished that a mere student of grammar could point out the literary mistakes of an erudite scholar. Although this matter was ended prior to any public meeting, the news spread like wildfire all over Navadvip. But finally, Keshava Kashmiri was ordered in a dream by Saraswati, the goddess of learning, to submit to the Lord, and thus the Kashmir Pandit became a follower of the Lord. The Lord was then married with great pomp and gaiety, and at this time he began to preach the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord at Navadvip. Some of the Brahmins became envious of his popularity, and they put many hindrances on his path. They were so jealous that they finally took the matter before the Muslim magistrate at Navadvip. Bengal was then governed by Pathans, and the governor of the province was Nawab Hussain Shah. The Muslim magistrate of Navadvip took up the complaints of the Brahmins seriously, and at first he warned the followers of Nimai Pandit not to chant loudly the name of Hari. But Lord Caitanya asked his followers to disobey the orders of the Qazi, and they went on with their Sankirtan, chanting. As usual, the magistrate then sent constables who interrupted a Sankirtan and broke some of the mridanga drums. When Nimai Pandit heard of this incident, he organized a party for civil disobedience. He is the pioneer of the civil disobedience movement in India for the right cause. He organized a procession of 100,000 men with thousands of mridangas and kartals, hand cymbals. And this procession passed over the roads of Navadvip in defiance of the Qazi, who issued the order. Finally, the procession reached the house of the Qazi, who went upstairs out of fear of the masses. The great crowds assembled at the Qazi's house displayed a violent temper, but the Lord asked them to be peaceful. At this time, the Qazi came down and tried to pacify the Lord by addressing him as his nephew. He pointed out that Nilambar Chakravarti referred to him as an uncle, and consequently, Srimati Sachi Devi, the mother of Nimai Pandit, was his sister. He asked the Lord whether his sister's son could be angry at his maternal uncle, and the Lord replied that since the Qazi was his maternal uncle, he should receive his nephew well at his home. In this way, the issue was mitigated, and the two learned scholars began a long discussion on the Koran and the Hindu Shastras. The Lord raised the question of cow killing, and the Qazi properly answered him by referring to the Koran. In turn, the Qazi also questioned the Lord about cow sacrifice in the Vedas, and the Lord replied that such sacrifice as mentioned in the Vedas is not actually cow killing. In that sacrifice, an old bull or cow was sacrificed for the sake of receiving a fresh younger life by the power of Vedic mantras. But in the Kali Yuga, such cow sacrifices are forbidden, because there are no qualified Brahmins capable of conducting such a sacrifice. In fact, in Kali Yuga, all yajnas, sacrifices, are forbidden because they are useless attempts by foolish men. In Kali Yuga, only the Sankirtan Yajna is recommended for all practical purposes. Speaking in this way, the Lord finally convinced the Qazi, who became the Lord's follower. The Qazi thenceforth declared that no one should hinder the Sankirtan movement, which was started by the Lord, and the Qazi left this order in his will for the sake of progeny. The Qazi's tomb still exists in the area of Navadvip, and Hindu pilgrims go there to show their respects. The Qazi's descendants are residents, and they never objected to Sankirtan, even during the Hindu-Muslim riot days. This incident shows clearly that the Lord was not a so-called timid Vaishnav. A Vaishnav is a fearless devotee of the Lord, and for the right cause he can take any step suitable for the purpose. Arjuna was also a Vaishnav devotee of Lord Krishna, and he fought valiantly for the satisfaction of the Lord. Similarly, Vajrangaji, or Hanuman, was also a devotee of Lord Ram, and he gave lessons to the non-devotee party of Ravana. The principles of Vaishnavism are to satisfy the Lord by all means. A Vaishnav is by nature a non-violent, peaceful living being, and he has all the good qualities of God. But when the non-devotee blasphemes the Lord or his devotee, the Vaishnav never tolerates such impudency. After this incident, the Lord began to preach and propagate his Bhagavatam, or Sankirtan movement, more vigorously, and whoever stood against this propagation of the Yuga Dharma, or duty of the age, was properly punished by various types of chastisement. Two Brahmin gentlemen named Chapala and Gopal, who also happened to be maternal uncles of the Lord, were inflicted with leprosy by way of chastisement, and later, when they were repentant, they were accepted by the Lord. In the course of his preaching work, he used to send daily all his followers, including Srila Nityananda Prabhu and Thakur Haridas, two chief whips of his party, from door to door to preach the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. All of Navadvip was surcharged with his Sankirtan movement, and his headquarters were situated at the house of Srivas Thakur and Sri Advaita Prabhu, two of his chief householder disciples. These two learned heads of the Brahmin community were the most ardent supporters of Lord Caitanya's movement. Sri Advaita Prabhu was the chief cause for the advent of the Lord. When Advaita Prabhu saw that the total human society was full of materialistic activities and devoid of devotional service, which alone could save mankind from the threefold miseries of material existence, he, out of his causeless compassion for the age-worn human society, prayed fervently for the incarnation of the Lord and continually worshipped the Lord with the water of the Ganges and the leaves of the holy Tulasi tree. As far as preaching work in the Sankirtan movement was concerned, everyone was expected to do his daily share according to the order of the Lord.